getting started with the July meeting of the CentOS Automotive SIG. We are about a week late because of holidays and such, but I'm glad to see everybody. To see we've actually got quite a bigger crowd than I thought we were going to in the middle of the summertime. Remember that last year we actually put meetings on hiatus for a few months because there was simply nobody around. But glad to see that we do have some folks around this time. So let me post the very brief slides that I've got. Should all be able to see that. Introduction, I think we just did. While we're waiting for Leo to do some technical status stuff, I was going to see if anybody had any remaining questions for IoT.bzh, because Philip gave a great talk last time and talked all about how IoT.bzh is using the automotive SIG assets in particular to produce RedPesc as a product. So I wanted to give a chance for anybody who had any remaining questions that didn't come up in the call while Philip is here. Oh, and we have Leo as well. Okay, well, we can go ahead and move on then. Thank you for joining, Leo. Sorry to drag you away from the things. So, technical status update. We've got a couple of different things. There is an updated HERTA documentation that I will go over toward the end. But in the first part, I wanted to hand it over to Leo to talk about container images.
All right, hello. So I have two updates with regards to what we've been doing with AutoSD. So the first one that we have a toolbox. For those who don't know, toolbox is a nice CLI that allows you to bootstrap development environments using containers, mostly Podman. It basically takes a base toolbox container image and starts a container in a very opinionated way. So we created a very early stage AutoSD toolbox concept for people to be able to either build packages for it comes with enabled AutoSD repositories, so to allow people to easily package their create RPM packages for their software for AutoSD using the packages that are available in the repositories. And also should be useful for people developing things that do not fit in a container, so kernel packages or anything else that needs to integrate with the hosts and directly with the host and not fit for the container workloads. So this is where this toolbox should be can be leveraged and used by members. The image is actually the majority of the images have been pushed to Kira.io as well, so you don't actually have to build it yourself if you don't want to. So you can the image that you can use. This is the image name that you can use if you want to give it a try for the AutoSD tool. And toolbox. And the other thing is that actually, give me a second. I have to go back to the other reading. But this is one of the updates. The other ones that we have early stage developer image be pushed to AWS. If you look at for AutoSD OS build in AMIs when creating a new machine, you should be able to see the idea of chose images that can bootstrap a new EC2 server Um, they are published nightly, so there's a new image. If there are changes to those images, they are nightly being published to AWS for people to use. They are mostly useful for if one either test test the Autosd operating system, or you can hook it up to your CI pipeline by using something like Kubernetes, KubeVirt, or other virtualization orchestration technology to test your application in a CI manner using the CentOS Automotive SIG. So those are the two. Also, this container image repository also contains other software images such as Chariot and other container image that we are kind of supporting and testing in AutoSD, so they can be are able to available um, for it to use. And every container that we are being packaging and running, not just these sample images, are going to be packaged as container images from that repository. So that's kind of a container repository and Git source from our SIG. That's all I had.
You are mute.
Thank you. I had a quick question about the AWS image. Is that the SOFI compatible image that is available there?
Sorry, I missed that.
Is the image in AWS SOFI compatible?
No, that's a simple developer image AutoSD only.
Okay.
We could publish the software, but it's a whole that'd be a different image overall.
I see. Okay.
It's a base and simple AutoSD image for people to try it out.
Okay. Okay. I haven't been asked about that. I was just curious myself. Great. Well, thank you, Leo. I really appreciate that. That's some interesting stuff going on for container images. If you are the kind of person who fires up container images, definitely take a look at this, especially with the toolbox. And we'd love to hear your opinions on the AWS image. We're always open for feedback, and I know that there will be some documentation being developed. Yes, Volker.
If you don't mind, we sometimes run containers on machines which have GPUs. So it would be interesting if you have a little test, if it works for you, running or accessing GPUs from inside your safe OS container. That would be interesting for us, I think.
Okay. Can you tell us more about the hardware that you're using?
It's for rendering, we are using dedicated servers, which is provided by NVIDIA. And for our machinery, we have embedded devices like you would expect, these typical machine IoT stuff, which is having additional GPUs for video analyzers and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it would be interesting if you could have something safe running inside the container which accesses the GPU. Not sure if that is possible.
Okay. When you say safe, do you mean like certified safe?
Yes.
I see. Okay. The CentOS Automotive, or the AutoSD image is not actually going through a safety process. So it does share a great deal of code with what will eventually become the Red Hat in-vehicle OS, which is intended towards safety.
So is this then a separate thing, or
this is the upstream for
okay.
the in-vehicle OS.
Okay.
In the same way that CentOS is the upstream for Red Hat Enterprise Linux.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, sure. Okay.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be used for development. So I think that as you're developing towards a safe OS to run with these GPUs, this might be a very good way to do it.
I think so. Yeah, definitely interesting.
So, okay, yeah, I'd be glad to hear more about your project.
once we have something to present, I will do so.
Okay, great. Sounds good. The only other thing I had on the list here was to talk about Herta a little bit. There is documentation now, which is I'll post that to the chat here. For those who are new, Herta is a lightweight container orchestration system based on dbus and systemd. It is very fast and efficient. And one thing that I should also mention is I have been told that the name may change. Herta was just kind of presented. Let's see if I can find the. Is there a link to the? There isn't. So GitHub. Here's the actual source. You can take a look at the source for it. Here's all the documentation about how to use that. It is intended for multi-node environments, and it is very quick. Uses quadlets. Here you can find out more information about quadlets with Podman. And the sorry, the bullet point was that there's updated documentation, but I did also want to mention that the name is potentially changing eventually.
We should have stuck with Blue Chihuahua.
I think we should have stuck. I really like that name. In fact, I'm not convinced that we can't go back to that. But that one's unfortunately, not within my sphere of influence. So anyway, we've got a little bit of time. We've got 12 minutes left in this thing. So if there's anybody who would like to have any discussions about stuff related to the automotive SIG, we're definitely around.
This is Philip. Just one thing I would like to make sure I understand correctly. In what you're presenting today with the Auto SD toolbox, how is this going to help people moving to a custom hardware, especially running on ARM? So how do we do the cross development? Because I had a quick check, and in fact, if I understand correctly, what this is, it's a tool to manage software without using DNF and having a different model to install software on containers. But I'm still wondering how I can read my CAN, and I have very basic issues that I want to address. So how this is going to help? Yeah.
Great question for Leo, but it looks like Eric has a hand up too.
I can answer this because I've been using a very similar environment to this toolbox for about a year now. But say you're in the process of hardware enablement, and all that hardware enablement work didn't go into the automotive kernel yet. On basically any piece of hardware running Linux, you can spin up this toolbox to develop in an AutoSD user space, and that's not necessarily on an ARM board. You could spin up this toolbox on an Intel laptop, etc. For example, one use case I use this for is I have Linux running on my Mac Mini M1. That's never going to run Red Hat Automotive Linux, really. But what I can do is spin up this AutoSD toolbox. So I basically have an AutoSD environment on my Apple machine. That's one example use case. But there's loads.
And what services do I have on this AutoSD that make it unique to the automotive, or help me to go to the automotive use cases? Yeah.
Well, Herta just mentioned, that's a good example of something developed specifically for automotive. There's some release files are different. The changes are minor at the moment, but the differences are minor between CentOS Stream and the automotive stream distribution at the moment, but it's always growing. So Hertz is an example of that, but there may be more in the future.
It's a great question. Thanks. I think it'd be a good opportunity for us to put some of this into documentation.
I actually have one more example. Another example is RPM building, which I forgot to mention. Sometimes if you build an RPM on CentOS Stream 9 versus AutoSD, you get slightly different results, because sometimes to build an automotive correctly, it expects like the etc OS release file and some of that sort of stuff to have the automotive labels on it. So RPM building is another use case. Sorry.
So if I understand correctly, this is somehow, from a functional point of view, equivalent to have a Koji builder that would mock a specific operating system within another one for building my RPM. Am I right?
Yeah, that's a valid use case. Yeah.
Any further questions for around? Oh, there we go. So, any further questions around this container image, or anything else? We've got about 7 minutes. I'll make sure to capture.
I have a last one. Okay, if this is helping me to build images for my specific operating system. What about cross build? Do I need to run that on a harm server, or I can run it on my desktop to produce harm binary?
That is an excellent question that I don't know the answer to.
We generally recommend you don't cross compile, but yeah.
Yeah, but all our customers have Intel machines, and if I wait for them to buy ARM machine, then I'm not ready to get business with them. So I need some intermediary solution. So if I understand correctly, you don't support cross-build as today. Is that right?
We have some limited support. Let me just say that.
Okay. To be honest with you, today most of the business is on ARM. I think everyone agrees on that. We see some demand coming on RISC-V, but
Slowly,
to be
yeah.
honest, people show some interest, but no one is ready to pay enough money for us to work on it. But we get impressions that also RISC-V is going to come in the pie pretty soon. Yeah.
Agreed. I would just raise it on the Automotive SIG chat channel or support channel. John Humphreys from TI, who's here today, has been reporting some issues, interacting with some Red Hatters and others to try to resolve them. I admit that I haven't read the thread carefully enough to know the current state. So, John, if you could share that, and we'd be aware if there was any urgency in helping you further.
Well, so I'm really kind of addressing, I guess, what Philip is talking about. And I first set out to establish a good development environment running on an ARM device itself. So there was no cross compilation needed, no QEMU or anything like that to kind of emulate that. And so a lot of so TI Texas Instruments has a nice device that has 8 A72 cores, and the board that we sell fairly cheaply. If you're interested in it, it's a AM69-SK. It's got
I think we have that in house. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's got 32 gig of RAM. So it's actually a nice, powerful environment for doing builds. And so that's what I've been working on is it's really a combination of getting up to speed in the Red Hat ecosystem, as well as getting the kernel support running correctly on that board with, right now I'm running Fedora Workstation 38 on that device and doing builds. And I think the thing that I'm running into right now is one a few specifics of how I build kernel, and I'm working through that now. But also, I think that what I discovered is that the builds for AutoSD have been with RHEL releases, not Fedora releases. So I probably made that mistake early on. I should have picked CentOS rather than Fedora. But
you made a reasonable choice, and we should make sure that it works. So
yeah.
You know, I don't think our documentation was clear on that point, and shouldn't be. We shouldn't be opinionated about that. So,
yeah. So what I've done is there's this nice utility called mock that kind of like emulates another user space for you, like a container. And so I've been running that with a RHEL image or a RHEL environment to get around that. So I'm making good progress, but it's just working through these little things that you run into.
Yeah. Well, I think that your comments on the on the message board are very positive, right? That they show some things that we haven't tested, that, some, your mileage may vary and some work is left to the reader, and we should clean that up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we are working on hardware enablement for the Texas Instruments 69SK. It's just an issue that it's not available in the stock on the Texas Instrument website, so it's hard to purchase right now.
Is it out of stock now?
Yes.
I didn't have that problem, but I got mine like a month. Maybe this is new.
I think that Alberto and his team do have one, right, Sandra?
We have sent them, I think,
Yeah.
a couple.
A couple.
Yeah,
I should have.
we have a couple. We are working with those that we received, and just wanted to buy another couple of them, but it's out of stock for now.
Okay. More is better. We get it.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for that update, John.
Sure.
Yeah, very much appreciated. All right, and I think we are actually toward the end of our time here at 7:29 a.m. my time. So any last comments or anything? Otherwise, we can go ahead and close up, and we'll meet again in about 3.5 weeks, about 3 weeks, I guess. Okay. So thank you all for coming. We will meet again in 3 weeks on August 2nd, and we'll see you all then. Thanks much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right.